Yep. So I'm George. I'm co-founder of Hellas, and I'm a software developer. I've been a developer for about 10, maybe 12 years, mostly working at early stage startups, productionizing product before launch. And for the past maybe 4 years, I've been working in the Web3 space. I worked at a couple of chains. I worked at Moonsong Labs, which make the Moonbeam EVM parachain on Polkadot. And I did some work on the ZK Sync tooling to add support for ZK Sync in Foundry. And so I was thinking about towards the end of last year when ChatGPT 3.5, I think, was first kind of becoming popular in 23. I was using it and I saw how, what a transformative technology this would be. But it kept refusing to answer me and refusing to do what I want, to make the image I want. I'd ask it to make a meme and it says, sorry, I can't do that. And so I grew up in the kind of beginning, the kind of early days of the internet where we had BitTorrent file sharing and everything was free, and it seemed like everything was going to be free and open in the future, and you could run anything you want. And to see this being turned into like a walled garden by the kind of proprietary San Francisco companies, I think was really sad. So I started to work on this project for decentralized permissionless compute. And I was working on it myself for a while, but there were some technical challenges. The main blocker being how to ascertain the validity of the results that are being returned on the network. So if I ask somebody else to run a piece of compute for me, I need to be sure that they've done it correctly. And at that point, I didn't know how to solve this, so I kind of put the project down. And a while later, I was talking with Paul, and he realized that some of the work he had been doing under a grant from the Ethereum Foundation could solve this validity problem. And so we decided to get together and make this company. I'll let Paul give his side.
Yeah. So I'm Paul, the other co-founder of Hellas. Before Hellas, I started off doing data science. I worked in a couple of startups, mostly on machine learning, AI stuff. But before the sort of LLM revolution, so prehistory basically. And did that for a while. Met George when we were working together at AIG and their data science team. Again, that was pre-LLM revolution. And then I decided I wanted to go back and just do some math. So I went back to university to get a PhD in category theory. And it sort of took a turn into category theory and machine learning, bit of a niche, sort of weirder look at machine learning. But I got to the end of this PhD and I realized there were kind of obvious applications of my thesis work to doing zero knowledge machine learning. So this is why George is saying about the validity problem, because it's sort of a very natural way to compile an AI model into the kind of structures, so polynomial circuits that you need to do ZK proofs for LM. I got to the end of this. I did this grant for EF. I pitched them on a little mini project. And I got to the end of this, and George and I spun out Hellas. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
So my main problem is with the kind of contents filtering, RLHF. It's essentially kind of the guide rails that you're forced to use. There's no opt-out. There's no setting you can click and say, I'm an adult. I want to be able to generate whatever images I want. And you can only really do this if you control the weights yourself, if you can run the entire model locally or ask somebody else to run it as on Hellas. And for example, for EZGen, for image generation, you can try on ChatGPT and you can say, can you make me a meme featuring the president? And it will say, no, I refuse to do that. I refuse to make any images with real life people. And you can try it on EZGen, and that's my solution.
So DeepSeek coming out was really nice for us because we have this thesis, right, that open models are going to win. Basically, the idea is that maybe you're OpenAI, maybe you have a really great lab, but your research is private and you're not sharing it, right? So ultimately, it's your lab versus the rest of the world. And you fundamentally can't compete with that unless you have $500 billion. We'll see how well they do with that. But DeepSeek coming out really proved that like open research, building on other people's work, collaborating, like it's just fundamentally more successful, right? Like they built this model for much less money. It came out of nowhere, and I think the trend is kind of clear that like open models are overtaking kind of the centralized closed labs, and we kind of like ride that wave a little bit. So I think it's good for us, really.
When we were building EZGen, how did we try to target this to developers? And Paul and I are both professional software developers, so we kind of have the experience of it, having a deadline and having a project to do. And the last thing you want to do in this situation is be like reading loads of documentation using unfamiliar tooling. And so we tried to make EZGen like as absolutely simple to use as it can be. So for image generation, it's just a simple REST API. You can do this trivially in any language, Python, TypeScript, even from your Bash terminal. It's not asynchronous, it's fully blocking. So you send off your request and then at some point you get the result back. It's pretty easy to use. And when we were designing the kind of interface for this, we wanted it to be like an API first product, that this API should be like the best way to interact with it. So that's what we started off building. And so you can see that even the documentation of the API, it has like a built-in test client. You can see samples of the code in all different languages. And I think this will allow developers to get started with EZGen really quickly and achieve what they're trying to do.
And I guess like longer term, one thing we don't really like about a lot of the sort of Web 2 serverless stuff that's out there is they tend to like lock you in. You get into their ecosystem and then you can never escape. And once they've done that to you, you then pay more for your compute, right? They charge you a premium on compute. And that's kind of the opposite of what we want, right? We're trying to get like absolutely thinnest margins possible. And like the goal is really for this to just be a portal to the Web3 product, right? So maybe you don't care about Web3, but you can still use EZGen and you get the advantage that your jobs are going to be served by like the absolute lowest cost provider. But like long term, we just want that price to go as close to zero profit for us as possible, and as close to like zero lock-in as well, right? So the easier it is to integrate, the easier it is to leave, which is not good for us, but like we're developers, right? We want to make something we use.
So one of the great things about EZGen is that we're building this every day. We're adding new models, and as soon as you see a model on a timeline, it's going to be on EZGen soon. We added the video generation last week, and this is like state of the art. You can't get this anywhere else. At the moment, we're working on audio generation, a song generating model. And so all of these models, they're going to be the same as our existing ones. It's really easy to use. The same API client, it's the same billing. You literally just switch the URL. And so once you kind of have EZGen integrated, you're going to have access to all of these great models as they come out.
Yeah, and like goal here is that it's like dead easy to use. We don't want to waste your time integrating in some like overly complicated thing, right? So it should be like 60 seconds to get images out of EZGen. Like that's how quick we want you to be able to integrate with it. So you're not spending any time and you're not spending any money. Well, you're spending a little bit, but like cheapest prices at the door. So.
But with Deep, you saw how fast that gets eroded, and it's number one in the App Store. And the second thing is that they have like a state-of-the-art model. They have like a frontier model. If they lose these two things, what's it worth?
What's great about DeepSeek is that because it's open source, I feel like it just changes the playing field, in like a really good way.
Yep.
I personally I'm all for open source. I young enough where like I've seen like all the closed source stuff, but like I also like my dad's a software developer, so like I would send me GitHub pages when I was like 11 and be like figure it out, and I would have to like git clone them.
Why can't you do this, son?
Exactly, right? And so like I know the beauty and like power, like he has a Linux machine, Linux open source, and so it's like stuff like that, and it makes me like really happy that like I don't care if it's China, like I could give less of a fuck if it's China because I can run the model myself. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's open source, it's not Chinese, it's everyone's.
I'm just like, like, dude, if DeepSeek is really that good and continues getting supported, and I don't know like if they're lying about how much compute they have or something, but like imagine if like Apple switches from like running ChatGPT locally to running DeepSeek locally. That would be massive, you know? And like that's something I'm sure Apple is heavily considering, because they probably pay ChatGPT like millions and millions of dollars, you know?
At the very least, they're probably going to copy the DeepSeek paper, right? Because the other part of DeepSeek is like the research.
And it checks out, right? I don't know if you guys looked at the papers, but I couldn't understand it. I'm not a math guy. But you read the papers, allegedly it checks out.